Hey class, in this video I'm going to go over audio layering and mixing, and we will export the final version of our audio project to submit. So this is our last week of audio. We're in week 6, and I'm going to go over just wrapping up the project and submitting on OpenLab and Brightspace. So in this video I'll just do a little mixing and then export a final version. In the next video, I'll go over submitting everything for the final version of this project. All right, so let's go over to Audacity. So this is kind of where we left off. I've got my intro with the dial-up, I've got my background music, and I've got my speaking audio. And what I want to do is do a couple edits just to mix things together a little bit better. So I'm not going to make a lot of changes here, but I'm going to go over mainly the automation tool, which is going to let us change the overall volume of a track over time, rather than the volume slider, which just lets us change the volume of the track in general. And that's the main way that we do mixing and layering the sounds together. I've only got 3 tracks here. I'm going to get rid of my noise track. I haven't really used that. I've got my little sound effect at the beginning. I've got some background music, and then I've got my vocal track. Keep in mind that for your project, you need to have at least 5 tracks of audio. So you should have a couple more things in there. And my project is only 20 seconds long. Your project should be at least 1 minute to 3 minutes long. So it needs to be a little bit longer. For what I'm doing, it's just, keep in mind, it's just a demo. Your project should obviously have more content and more edits and things like that. All right, so let's just work on mixing these guys together. So we have our music coming in, and when it comes in, I actually want it to come in loud because it kind of cuts through that sound effect that we've got. So let's listen to that transition for a second. So I kind of like that. I like it that it cuts in on a beat. I don't want to fade in here. But then as it plays, hello, I start to talk over it, and I'll probably move my vocal a little bit closer over here. And as I start to talk over it, I don't want it to be interrupting or too loud for my voice. So let's see how they sound together for a moment. Hello, welcome to the... So you can see when my voice comes in, the music is too loud, and they're kind of fighting for the same space. And so what I can do is use my automation tool. So I'm going to leave the voice kind of at the volume that it's at. Actually, I increased the volume a little bit, I think when I was demonstrating the noise gate. So let's bring that volume back to 0, and let's listen to that again. Hello, welcome to the MMP 100. And you can even see these 2 first little hits to the kind of get into the red area in my monitor up here. So they're probably a little bit too loud anyway. So if we want to do a fade out instead of just cutting the track and changing the audio, we can use the automation tool. So I'm going to move my cursor up here, and I'm going to turn on the automation tool. When you turn on the automation tool, you see these kind of like blue lines at the top and the bottom of the track. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And this little like cursor that's kind of like 2 arrows pointing towards each other, up and down, appears. And when I click, what I'll do is add a little dot here. And what this dot does is it sets the volume at that moment. So if I just have 1 dot, it's going to set it for the whole track. But if I click and add a dot there and then add another dot, I can fade out the track like this. So let's listen to that fade. So it may have been hard to hear. I'm going to make it a lot more dramatic just so you can hear it a little bit better. So you can hear the volume getting much lower. So we can see that fade going from here to here when my vocal starts. I don't want it to just go straight down because I do want to hear the music for a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll add another point right here and just bring this up to the same level of volume. And if I add too many points, I can right click on a point and cut. Oh, I can't. How do I? Okay, let's try cut. Okay, it's not letting me cut a point. Let me just pause for a second and double check that I'm doing that correctly. Okay, so I actually can't cut the point. If I want to get rid of that point, I just drag it up above the track. All right, let's listen to this now. Hello. So now it stays at the loud volume for a little bit so we can hear sort of the music, and then it fades out in time for me to come in and start talking. Hello. And so if we want to get kind of fancy, we could bring the music back in between my two speaking parts. So maybe I'll move this audio over here a little bit and I'll fade it in and back out. I'm not sure how realistic this is, but this is just a good example. So I'm going to add another point when I'm done talking around here. And I want to try to line that up with this point over there. And then I'll add another point over here. And actually, let's just go ahead and add this over here so that's nice and lined up. And then I'll add a couple of points in the middle. So then I'll fade. Maybe I won't fade all the way up, but I'll fade most of the way up. Okay, let's see how that sounds. Grid podcast. Today we are talking. Okay, so that sounds pretty good. There's a loud part right here anyway, so that's kind of a nice little emphasis. And then maybe I'll fade up at the end, and then maybe have a little fade out. Grid podcast. Today we are talking about audio. So by using the automation tool, we can kind of fade in and out different parts of our composition at different points to kind of mix better with the vocals or maybe other sound effects that you might be using at different points. So that's kind of the main thing that we can do in Audacity to do some mixing. The nice thing about the automation tool is it's not destructive, so we can make changes to this and update it. We can save this and come back and make changes to the automation tool. The points of automation are referred to as an envelope. So it's kind of like moving up and down. That part of it is referred to as an envelope. And in other programs, you can add envelopes to other qualities as well, like the certain frequencies or attack and release and things like that. In Audacity, we're just kind of doing a basic, pretty simple envelope. But that gives us, enough to work with in terms of what we want to do with our recording. So let's go ahead and export the final version of our composition. And in the next video, we will post it on OpenLab and submit it for this project. So I'll play back the whole thing, just make sure everything sounds good. Hello, welcome to the MMP 100 podcast. Today we are talking about audio. All right, so that sounds good. I've got all the edits I want in there. I'm going to save this and I'm going to export my audio. So I'm going to go into the export and I'm just going to name this audio final. If you have a name for your piece, you could also name it after that. So I'm just going to save this. I'm going to save an MP3 file and I'm going to click export. And so now I'll have that in my project folder. So let's take a look. So I've got my audio folder and I've got everything I need in here. So I've got my AUP3 file that I'm going to submit on Brightspace, and I've got my audio final MP3, which I'll post on the blog. So I'll go over all that in the next video. So see you over there.